The war in Ukraine has seen the proliferation of drones on the battlefield. The military advantages are obvious, especially for a combatant taking on a more conventionally powerful foe. But does the increasing sophistication of this technology point to a future in which AI and autonomous weapons also become commonplace? And if it does, what ethical questions might that raise?
In Ukraine, the misery of a major conflict has returned to Europe. Russia's invasion of its neighbour has killed tens of thousands of people and shocked the world. Families and civilians have been caught up in the bloodshed. With its trenches, tanks and artillery, it's the kind of fighting Europe thought it had left behind in the 20th century.
But this war has also been a battleground for some very modern technology. It is the world's first full-scale drone war.
This film is about how drones are changing the way we fight today. But it's also about tomorrow and the coming age of AI, autonomous weapons, and the complicated ethical questions we may all have to face.
For the first time, the US Army tested a new radio target plane fitted with remote control.
Get ready for landing position.
Whether you call them UAVs, RPVs or drones, they're older than you think.
I have this great quote published in the New York Times in 1946 that says, "Drones are not new."
Ulrike Franke is a senior policy fellow at the European Council of Foreign Relations and an expert on how technologies affect warfare.
But I usually say that kind of modern drones, the things we're looking at the moment, really came about at the turn of the millennium, which basically has to do with the fact that this is the moment where a lot of technologies develop.
It was the era of America's so-called war on terror. From the safety of US air bases, operators piloted armed Predators and Reapers over Afghanistan, Iraq, Pakistan, Somalia, and Yemen. This wasn't just death from above, this was death from the other side of the world. The remote technological might of the most powerful military on the planet versus fighters in dusty cars and dusty towns. And the civilians caught in the wrong places at the wrong times.
أصبحنا ننظر إليها كأداة رعب وأداة قتل يعني كلما سمع حتى الأطفال إذا سمعوا صوت طائرة تراهم يعني يختبئوا وكأنها ستكرر الهجوم.
But two recent wars show how drones can be used by more evenly matched enemies. In September 2020, Azerbaijani troops and tanks poured across the line of contact into Armenian-controlled Nagorno-Karabakh. A frozen conflict reignited.
During Nagorno-Karabakh, particularly those areas, leveraged Turkish and their own technology to give the Armenians, let's put it this way, a very hard time.
Azerbaijan used drones bought from Turkey and Israel to destroy seemingly defenseless Armenian troops and armor on the ground, and then broadcast the videos to the world.
What drones basically give you is a camera team that follows your every move. If you do a drone operation, you always film everything you do, take pictures and all of this. And of course, this material can then be used for information warfare, for propaganda purposes.
But I wouldn't want to overplay the role of drones in that war. It's very difficult to overplay, however, the role of drones in Ukraine. Ukraine has shown us where drone warfare is going.
In such high attrition combat, commercial quadcopters are cheap and plentiful enough to be an almost disposable frontline tool. The Ukrainians are using these and more advanced drones for tasks both lethal and otherwise. The drone filming this is guiding a surrendering Russian to waiting Ukrainian troops. Here, a drone is retrieving a Russian military radio. Now Ukrainians can eavesdrop on their enemy's plans. This is two drones actually fighting each other, machine against machine, in a battle for the skies.
In Ukraine, they really are coming up with novel ways of how to use drones, using them to attack ships.
The October strike on Russia's Black Sea fleet using specially designed military sea drones is perhaps the most audacious use of drones in the war so far.
But the really revolutionary thing about drones, I would argue, is the surveillance and reconnaissance they provide. Because all of a sudden you get really cheaply, really easily, 24/7 surveillance in the sky and at quite low hierarchical levels in an armed force.
This has transformed the use of artillery. Live drone pictures show gun crews where to fire, and misses can be corrected so the next strike hits. Certainly Ukraine's drone use has been the more innovative, but Russia is waging drone warfare too, and for many of the same tasks: surveillance, artillery correction, and attack. August 2022. A new menace appears in Ukraine's skies. These distinctive exploding drones are much cheaper than missiles, and waves of them can overwhelm a city's air defences. Desperate police try to shoot them down as they come in. Russia launches them, but actually they're the Iranian Shahed 136 and its smaller version, the 131.
We've been taken through pretty tight security to get here. This is in a building run by Ukraine's military intelligence. They want to show us these, the Iranian drones that have been hitting Ukraine's cities.
I'm getting rare access to recovered examples. Ukraine's military intelligence has been studying them carefully.
So these are the Shaheds, right?
Це шахід у нас 131, 131. This is 136.
136. So this is the one that's been hitting cities.
Да, цей безпілотник нам саме більше наносить ударів, тому що Росія його саме чаще застосовує, тому що в нього бойова частина складає 50 кілограм.
And it's what's inside these drones that's particularly surprising. The guts are almost entirely commercial electronics from around the world.
CRP-антенна, антенна канадського виробництва фірми Talisman.
So this is Canadian, right?
Так, це Канада.
So that's interesting because it shows that despite being under sanctions, Iran is still managing to get hold of components like this.
According to the intelligence officer, the only Iranian thing they discovered inside was the engine.
What have you found out from these drones here that help you combat future attacks?
В даних безпілотниках ми знайшли комплектуючі закордонних виробників. Всі ці комплектуючі ми передали нашим закордонним партнерам, щоб не уможливити поставку даних комплектуючих до Ірану. Також ми там знайшли CRP-антенну, дізналися, на якій частоті вони працює, ця антенна, та як здійснювати її подавлення.
Indeed, whether by jamming or shooting them down, Ukraine's success rate against the Shaheds is now 90, sometimes 100%. In short, they've adapted. For the firms leading this 21st century arms race, there is no better laboratory for their technology than war. These Ukrainian troops are using FlyEye, made by the Polish defence firm WB Group. It's largely automated and can fly for 6 hours, watching everything going on below. The company also makes Warmate, a swarmable, loitering munition believed to have been used in this attack on a Russian base. Neither platform is new, but in WB Group's Warsaw showroom, its executives tell me what they're learning from the war next door is vital.
We get the feedback every day from Ukrainians, and we are updating. Using this feedback, we update the system day by day. So every week the system is better.
This symbiotic information loop is now accelerating the development of drones.
We just on our own eyes see the revolution, when the drones are the best soldier's helper or the best friend of the soldiers, and it already happens.
Right now?
Right now, especially in the Ukraine when they use the very cheap drones to locate some enemies on the battlefield.
But where's this revolution going?
So, David, what do you think the future holds? What will drones, UAVs, be doing in 5 or 10 years' time that they're not doing now?
Now it is much more automated than 10 years ago, and I'm sure it will be changed in the next 10 years.
And artificial intelligence is going to be an important part of that, do you think?
Mainly artificial intelligence, machine learning will take control over the UAVs. But in the future, it will become automatic. Probably in the near future, UAV will fly over the target, find the target, decide it is the target, and probably, maybe, in the future, will attack.
We're now entering ethically treacherous territory. Lethal machines potentially making their own decisions about whether to kill. Remy Vilk is sure that's a step too far.
You know, the war is the struggle between the humans, not between the machines. We can use the machines as the tools, of course, and as our little helpers, but never ever the machines will make a decision about life and death. Always the human being has to push the button.
But David isn't so convinced.
And do you think AI can and should be trusted to make those decisions?
Today, not. But we will see in the future. I don't know. I think the world goes in this direction.
It's a taste of the moral question being asked right now in those countries leading the drone and artificial intelligence revolutions, and it's one we'll come back to. First, though,
it is easy to get carried away with all of this, but drones by themselves cannot win wars. They didn't, for example, lead to victory in Afghanistan for the United States and its allies. And for all the surveillance, stealth, and precision that drones provide, the militaries that use them can still make awful mistakes.
As the last Americans pulled out of Kabul and the Taliban closed in, tragedy piled on top of tragedy. 3 days after a devastating suicide attack at Kabul airport, the US military fired missiles from a drone at what it said was an Islamic State fighter with a car full of explosives. But it wasn't. It was a civilian and his family. 10 people died, 7 of them children.
If that intelligence system doesn't work properly, as it didn't in that case, and if the kill chain, as it's called, is polluted by poor information, then it doesn't matter what delivery system you have, you're going to get events like that.
Why is it, do you think, that all of the technological superiority that the West had in Afghanistan, why did that technological superiority not translate to an ultimate victory?
Because we had no strategic or political objective that anyone could identify. And we didn't appreciate or realise that our enemies wanted to win this more than we did, and were better equipped to do so in that they knew the ground, they knew the people, and they hated us.
It's important to hold on to these points as the artificial intelligence dawn breaks. More than a battle of technologies, war is a battle of wills. A low-tech force can still defeat a better equipped and resourced enemy if it wants it more. And any high-tech weapon, AI included, is only as safe and precise as the information that feeds it. This is something campaigners against lethal AI are well aware of. This is Slaughterbots.
Your kids probably have one of these, right?
An arms control advocacy film
Not quite.
made in 2017.
That skill is all AI. Inside here is 3 grams of shaped explosive. This is how it works. Well, people don't.
It imagines a near-future reality where, as the slick tech entrepreneur on stage puts it,
let's watch the weapons make the decisions.
But of course, in this fiction, letting weapons make decisions goes horribly wrong. Sinister men release assassin drone swarms to kill political opponents and student activists. It's a dystopian warning about a possible tomorrow. But its imagined future is starting to look disconcertingly similar to the technology available in our real-life present day.
Okay, Elizabeth, I'm going to show you this video. Tell me your response.
Elizabeth Miner is an arms control campaigner for the group Stop Killer Robots and I'm showing her the promo for a new Israeli military drone.
The Lanius conducts GPS navigation, flight, scanning, mapping enemy detection, and lethality in a complex urban environment.
Lanius and the Slaughterbots are jarringly similar. Lanius isn't yet making its own decisions to kill, a person is. But this is a design choice, not a technological inability.
This video shows direction of travel that we're seeing in terms of developments in increasing autonomy in weapon systems. One major concern that we have is that with autonomous weapons, there's an erosion of human control over the use of force, and also the increasing automation of decisions to kill to take a human life.
How do you stop killer robots? What's the process?
We want to see a treaty negotiated by states at an international level to prohibit certain autonomous weapon systems, so those that automatically target people, and also systems that can't be meaningfully controlled.
Heavily laden bombers leave the airfield every few seconds for their long and hazardous flight.
Japan, 1945. A new and terrible era of destruction. As World War II drew to a close, the US dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The horror was so immense, they've never been used in war again. Nations have pledged together to keep them in check. It's a model campaigners want to repeat for autonomous weapons, only this time catching a destructive new technology before it proliferates.
Many of the people involved in the nuclear program looked back on that and thought, rather than opening Pandora's box, we should just have kept it shut. And the advocates of a ban, so-called, on autonomous weapons, their claim is, and it's a very plausible one, which needs to be taken seriously, we are at the same moment in history with these systems. We need to keep the box closed. You can't put them back in, but if we don't open the box, we won't see these risks.
Tom Simpson is an Oxford University philosopher who draws from his background in the British Marines to explore the moral complexities of force.
We have a fear of being predated on. And I think what autonomous weapons raise that fear in a new way, that we would actually be creating kind of a new species that will predate on humans.
So he can understand the fear, and he can see the arguments for constraining the technology. But does Tom believe them himself?
As a philosopher, I don't know how powerful these systems are going to be. They may be underwhelming. They may also be extremely powerful. And if there's a situation where there's an adversary nation which possesses these systems and Britain has decided not to do so, I would view that as a dereliction of responsibility. I would view the government that made that decision as having failed in its duty to protect British people.
This is the conundrum that faces any government weighing the risks of developing military AI and autonomous weapons. Few people are more aware of this than Lieutenant General Jack Shanahan. As director of the Pentagon's Joint Artificial Intelligence Center, it was Jack's job to make sure the US military was taking AI seriously. Now retired, he can speak more freely.
Is there anything about the coming age of AI, autonomous weapons, that keeps you up at night?
The idea of weapons being released off of autonomous systems that do not have a human in the decision-making process anywhere. No commander I have ever known would be satisfied with an autonomous weapon system that was making life and death decisions without a human involved somewhere. What I'm concerned about, does every country do the same thing? If not, then we're in an AI race to the bottom.
There are plenty of people who are scared of this killer robot future, and they want to put a brake on the development of AI. Do you sympathize at all with them?
So I think what we're not going to see immediately is anybody to say, we just flat out ban these systems. We don't know enough about them. There's not enough support to be able to ban them. And I think we all are trying to understand what these capabilities will do over the next decade.
Is the US talking to China, talking to Russia about this?
Yeah, at least on an unofficial level, you call track 2 dialogues. These are ongoing conversations that we have.
Is the coming age of AI and drones going to make the weapon systems that we've come to take for granted, warships, jet planes, tanks, things like that, is it going to make those obsolete?
There are some people who say we just need to give up on all these legacy systems and jump into this miracle future of AI. It's not going to happen. One, politically, it will never happen because you have people lobbying for these systems. But two, it's also unrealistic to think these capabilities will develop that quickly on the AI side. What we will see is a way to bridge what I call legacy systems, the more traditional big weapon systems, with some of these AI capabilities that will make a better weapon systems, and you'll use it in different ways.
What's the US military using AI for right now?
Mostly things like image recognition, object detection, classification, and tracking. What machines do is get through massive amounts of information almost instantly, and then be able to say to say an analyst, look here, or to an operator, look here. So it's really, I don't want to say they're mundane uses of AIs, but they're definitely not headline-grabbing uses of AI yet. I'll tell you what I never worked on was killer robots. There were no lethal autonomous weapon systems because the technology was still new. And we had so many different ways we could use AI to help improve operations everywhere else in the department that was not at the top of our list of things.
Hostile drone identified, move to sector Bravo.
Someone will be prioritising killer robots though. So the arms race to counter swarms is well underway. The US company Drone Shield hopes its drone guns will add a layer to the defences. They can force down commercial drones being used to take on civilian or military targets.
So, how simple is this to use?
It's essentially a point-and-shoot device. Essentially what this does is it interferes with the communication link, the video end, as well as the navigation. Much like you and I are having a conversation here, we can hear each other speak. If someone were to introduce a concert speaker into the equation, we couldn't hear ourselves communicate. This device is acting as a concert speaker to interrupt the communication.
The way CEO Matt McGran tells it, police and militaries are having to play catch-up.
What are the threats coming down the line that you can see you having to respond to?
We're seeing that start now. So more autonomous operations. Everyone talks about drone swarms. It doesn't have to be like you see in Hollywood, 50 drones flying across, but 10 could provide a challenge for certain systems today. What's most worrisome is that the technology for a large-scale attack exists today. The fact that we haven't seen it yet is fortunate.
Sounds like you don't think the threat is being taken seriously enough yet.
Not across all domains.
Ukraine shows us that drones are a versatile and economical weapon in the modern military arsenal. They're here to stay. And the armed forces of developed nations will increasingly be reliant on machine learning. But whether they allow lethal systems to make their own kill decisions will become a dominant issue as AI develops.
I wouldn't like to be on a battlefield 10 years hence. I think it'll be a very lethal place.
So swarming is one area that I think is important. The other area that I think is important is miniaturization, especially when it comes to armed drones.
There's going to be a great many conflicts, I expect, in the future, which have similar characteristics to the Afghan campaign, in which reliance on technology will not just not help you win, it may actively help you lose.
I can see a future where countries that are more interested in effect than ethics would entirely, or could almost entirely, outsource their combat to ML, to machine learning or AI.
I'm less immediately concerned with the Terminator and more concerned with AI-enabled surveillance in countries such as China and elsewhere.
I suspect the battlefield of 30 years' time will probably be pretty similar to the battlefield we have today. And the Ukraine crisis exhibits this as well, that it's entirely recognizable to a World War II kernel.
No one has a crystal ball. Predictions invariably contain guesswork. But two things are certain. Humans will always find reasons to fight. And humans always look for more efficient ways to kill each other.